lot of Ferrari videos lately, but today that all changes. I've been enjoying working on the 360 project, and I do really love this car. I hope you guys have been enjoying the series where I get this thing fixed up. If you're not aware, I bought what may be the world's cheapest running, driving, clean title Ferrari 360 that was available, and I've been modifying it and making it better over the last couple episodes and comparing it to some of my actual other favorite cars. As you can see, it's under construction right now, so we will have a new episode with it coming up next week. But this week, we're back onto what I consider to be the best car in the world, my favorite car. We're making a Porsche episode. You guys know I love to rant and rave about how much I absolutely love this car, but the new 992 GT3 RS has been out for a bit now. I've seen them around, and they look absolutely ridiculous. In a good way and a bad way, because it almost looks like it's too much for the street. I have the opportunity to go and drive one and actually test it head to head with this car. So let's go see. Is newer actually better?
Everything's okay.
So we came to Porsche Experience Center of Los Angeles, where they have a racetrack right next to one of the busiest, slowest moving, widest freeways in the entire world, the 405. And we're gonna get to compare my 997.2 GT3 RS to the brand new 992 GT3 RS. And I am so excited, let's go. I gotta take a picture first. God, it's framed up nice.
This is Hunter. He's gonna be guiding us for all the shots.
What's good?
So if I fuck up, it's kind of his fault.
Yep.
And the reason why I'm allowed to bring my 997 out on track here is not some sort of influencer deal or because I have a YouTube channel. PECLA actually does Porsche owner experiences where you can take your car out on their track. They do it once a month. Go check out their website for more info. But if you don't have a Porsche and you just want to drive something, whether it's like a base Carrera, a turbo, or even a GT3 RS, you can do a driving experience at any time. With a professional driving coach, they have this crazy 1.35 mile track right here in LA. It's friggin' sick. Before we talk about this, let's go talk about my favorite car. This is my time to nerd out because, as you guys know, whenever I reference this car, I say it is the greatest car of all time. And this is my 2010 Porsche 997.2 GT3 RS. And it is my absolute favorite car. It's my all-time dream car, and I don't think it gets any better than this if you like driving. For you guys that don't know anything about these cars, or this one in particular, let me take you through the basics. This is a 3.8 liter flat six with a manual 6-speed transmission. From the factory, it makes 450 horsepower and does 0 to 60 in about 3.8 seconds. But this car is nowhere near stock. So the GT3 RS is a bit different from the standard GT3 from the generation. It's wider. So it's got these front fender flares. So it has wider front wheels and a wider track width. And then out back, the rear quarter panels are actually different than the standard GT3, and these are also wider. So it runs a 12-inch wheel with a 325 stock. This is also 325, but it's on a 12.5. It also has bigger aero, both front and rear. It came with a single mass Lighten flywheel, less sound deadening. It even made 15 more horsepower over the base GT3 from some cams. The GT3 RS is super special. They only made 543 of these for the United States market, which is like incredibly rare. That's why the values on these things has gone absolutely through the roof. But let me show you more about this car and then we'll jump inside. From the factory, the 3.8 liter Mezger flat six makes 450 horsepower. This one makes 465 wheel because it's got a full Dundon D4 package. So that's an intake plenum, a throttle body, long tube headers, high flow cats, a muffler, and then it's got a custom tune. This thing absolutely rips. But beyond that, it's got a whole slew of mods. And one of the reasons why I actually got this car a bit cheaper than I think market value is because it was so modded. So back in 2012, this car had a GMG World Challenge package equipped. They did dampers, it's got JRZ RS Pro 3-way coilovers, it's got a roll bar, it's got all the suspension arms and bushings and sway bars. Everything on the suspension you could change has been changed. Giro disc, pads and rotors, BBS E88s, 19 by 9.5, 19 by 12.5. It's got Yokohama 8009 tires with a 255 in the front and a 325 in the rear. It's about everything you can do to a 997 GT3 RS. There's nothing left to this car that you could actually modify, which is kind of crazy because it looks pretty much stock. But the beauty of this car is actually in its simplicity. Full-blown Porsche nerd stuff here is the spec of this car is actually incredible. It's super rare. It's got the carbon fiber bucket seats. It's got extended leather with red stitching on the dash, the door panels, the seats, carbon fiber center console, GT3 RS 4.0 shift knob, 991 GT3 steering wheel. What I love about the 997 GT3 is just how simple it is. If you look in this car, it's got nothing. Very basic. It's bare bones as can be. It's got some old school navigation, but it's got literally one button to shut off the traction control. That's it. There's no extra nannies. There's nothing crazy about the inside of this car. It doesn't feel dated, but it doesn't feel new. It just feels kind of perfect. And now the 992 GT3 RS is absolutely insane. Like, it doesn't even look like a Porsche street car anymore. So this is the all-new Porsche GT3 RS. It's the craziest looking car compared to what was their craziest looking car. The hard facts on this thing, it's a 4.0 liter flat six that makes 518 horsepower naturally aspirated, and it revs to 9,000 RPM. It's an unbelievable engine, but you can't get over the downforce. So this car generates 1,900 pounds of downforce. And if you look at it, way different than a standard GT3. That looks like a normal car. This, they got rid of the trunk and they added a center radiator because the air will now come in and then come out here, and as it's cooling the car, it's actually creating downforce. But then what's more interesting about that is these hood vents here are actually throwing air out to the side so that it doesn't go over the roof and then sucked into the intakes to heat up the engine. So it actually comes up over and then roof arrow deflects the hot air from going back into the engine bay, which is insane. We're not gonna talk about the wing yet because we're still on the front, because it's got all sorts of aero, not only in the wheel wells, the fender vents, rear fender vents, but also some of the suspension components are actually aerodynamically designed. The GT3 RS runs the wider body, much like the turbo cars. This is not an air inlet for the intake system. This is actually going through the quarter panel and exiting the bumper to help make the car slipperier, which is insane. I always thought that this was an air duct for the intake, but it's not. And then out back, active aero on a street car. So this wing is actually a massive swan neck that's taller than the roof line, and it has an active plane on the wing to help give you more downforce and then plane out to help the car achieve higher top speeds. Insane. But I gotta say, one thing I give it up to Porsche for is that this car is huge. It's massive. It makes the 997 look like a Miata in comparison, but it's not that much heavier than the 997. This car only weighs about 100 pounds more than a 997 as advertised. Spec changes everything, we know, but we're not gonna get that far into it. Even the carbon fiber roof, which we didn't talk about, is pretty sick. One thing I noticed is, like, I opened the door to this car. This feels like a heavy door. So I don't know where they're hiding all the weight, because this thing even has noise canceling glass. So it's pretty crazy that, like, they didn't compromise in making the car feel crummy or cheap, but it still managed to keep it light for a brand new car. I respect that. But once you jump in the cabin, you realize just how technologically advanced this car is, as if the aero wasn't enough of a clue. But it's got so many different features. I mean, Starting with the gauge cluster, Porsche 911 has always been very notable for its gauge clusters and their individual dials. That's now removed. You got one center tachometer and now a huge digital display that wraps all the way around, even into the infotainment system. It's a lot to take in. But then beyond that, I mean, the steering wheel has crazy amount of adjustment. You could do everything from your damper setup, traction control. You could even adjust your differential here. It's absolutely crazy the amount of stuff that you could adjust in this car. That's sort of where I look at these two cars as the big evolution of time. In 2010, the GT3 RS was a very simple, bare bones driver car. But now in 2024, the GT3 RS has a lot more to compare to and a lot more competition, which are like twin turbo and hybrid and have plenty of other systems. So it's pretty amazing that Porsche managed to keep this car naturally aspirated, and it does have a ton of technology, but I think it's gonna make it pretty good on track. So let's go try this thing out. All right, so first thing you notice, even while just sitting in this car, listen to how loud it is. The clutch chatter is insane. Back in 2010, when these cars came out, it had the single mass flywheel that creates a lot of chatter. And people were bringing these cars back to the dealership because they were concerned that the car was broken. And when I first got this car, I knew this, but I put my girlfriend in the car and she was like, "Is everything okay?" Listen to this. It sounds like a diesel truck inside, which is insane. I don't think that anyone would allow that in current day. That's what these cars are so famous for. They're raw, they're visceral, they're connected, and they don't have a lot of creature comforts. This car's got all the basics, AC and power windows, but you know, it's got traction control and that's it. But this car makes you work for it on track. The clutch is heavy, the gearbox is heavy. Downshifts in this car are so much fun. Because of that lightweight flywheel, it really makes you work for it because it's so easy to over rev the car on a downshift. Because above 3,000 RPM, this thing revs like a sport bike. So you have to blip it, but you have to almost wait to let off the clutch because it'll rev too high on the downshift. But this engine is so rewarding. The 3.8 liter flat six Mezger motor, factory back then, made 450 horsepower, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it revs to 8,400 RPM. And it's so much fun. The story about the GT3 RS that was so cool is back in 2010 when this car came out, Porsche actually put a roll cage in one, drove it from Stuttgart to the Nürburgring, ran the 24-hour Nürburgring, finished, and then drove it home. So it was a really robust car, and the Mezger motors actually have an amazing reputation of being this almost supercar engine that could just get absolutely hammered on and put a ton of miles on without any major services. Car to drive. If you don't drive it properly, it's not going to work. And I really love this track because it really keeps you busy with upshifts and downshifts, which is what makes this car shine. It's so much fun just getting to slam upshifts and then go and do heel toe downshifts in this car. Nothing compares to this. This car is just so good that I can't imagine anything topping it. It's so much fun, it's so connected, it's so good to drive. It's straight up like I nerd out every time I talk about this car just because of how much I love it. And it's embarrassing, but it's the only similar feeling I get when talking about something is when I talk about my dog. It's so sensitive to weight transfer. You get on the brakes really hard to get the front to bite on turn-in, but if you lift a bit too early and get on the throttle too early, you can almost feel the front end pick up and start to scrub on understeer. When you have a motor slung over the rear and pretty much no weight on the front, super dynamic. So it keeps you like upshifting and downshifting a ton, which I think is a lot of fun. It's sick. And getting to just like pound laps in your car with the AC on is great. The Porsche owner experience is, it's like a supplement for a track day. And I gotta say, I think I'd rather come here than drive all the way up to Buttonwillow, because like we just did probably 20 laps and I got all my kicks. Like I'm good. And I didn't have to drive 3 hours through like Bakersfield for no reason.
Stoked to drive the new one?
Yeah, I'm stoked to drive the new one. I think it's gonna be really interesting on track because this car and this track, there's a lot of upshift, downshift, lots of going with the clutch and the shifter and stuff. So I think that with the PDK, it's gonna be nuts to just kind of like smoothly go through that stuff. I don't know, this track's kind of small and that car's really fast. Like it's gotta shrink it a ton. It doesn't get old. They just look so ridiculous. But since this is a pretty serious car, Aaron, who's the drive coach here, is gonna hop in, kind of walk me through all the features and stuff and go for a couple laps before we get to turn it up. That's the one worst part about like Porsches. The idle is never as impressive as like a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or anything. Like the 911 idle sometimes is a little tractory. Oh, it's so composed.
Yeah.
Damn, this thing sounds nuts.
This is everything zeroed out. This is like no adjustments made whatsoever.
Oh my god, this thing is so fast.
It's insane. So stable though.
And this is why you need an instructor for a couple laps, because this car is obnoxiously fast. Oh my lord.
Super fun.
Oh, it's got so much grip.
The active aero and all that, also creating that like air brake. That wing is really helping out. It's impressive. The car
Dude,
is
it's so sick. This thing feels insane from the passenger seat. And honestly, like I can't stress to you guys watching enough, it's crazy that you can come out and do an experience in a car like this.
yeah.
This is a lot of car to handle. And even like an experienced driver like myself, I'm like, I don't really need instruction and stuff. I don't know if that's true. And it's pretty awesome to get a good feeling of what to do on this track with a car like this, because it is really fast, it's really tight. Like you could definitely get yourself into some sticky situations, but
The
this thing
corners
feels
come up
nuts.
fast. Yeah.
Oh my god.
It's insane.
Holy crap. Nice driving, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
First outing in the 992 GT3 RS. I'm excited. Right off the bat, this is a really nice car to be in.
Yeah, 100%. It's definitely that race car you can drive on the road and really have no shame.
Dude, mid-throttle, it's quiet, it's comfortable.
Yeah.
The road noise is low. You would not think that this is the stripped down race version of a GT3 if you didn't see it from the outside. This is a million times more practical than my car already. Yeah, I would sit in LA traffic all day in this thing and not care.
Yep, I'm sure Porsche is considering what everyone's going to do with their GT3 RS. So
they know the market.
They'll know what's going on.
I'm a big manual guy. I love 3-pedal, but the PDK in this car is phenomenal. Like we're not even hammering on this thing yet, but the shifts are unbelievable. And unlike a lot of dual clutch cars, there's no kick, there's no nonsense. Like it's very smooth.
Yeah, seamless. Hard to beat it.
Oh my lord, this thing is so fast. 518 horsepower. It's a lot, and it's low torque.
Yeah.
We're still in the mid 300s with torque.
Yep.
So it doesn't have that crazy kick in the pants feel feel that you get from like a modern turbo supercar, but it's a high RPM game. So
for sure.
You string this thing out to 9,000 RPM and it really is going. And you pair that with the PDK gearbox, it makes for lightning fast shifts, so it is just like unbelievably fast. But so agile and so sharp that everything happens so fast. Like you go through a corner and before you know it, the corner's over.
One of the coolest things that stood out to me about this car, and this is just Porsche for you, they created a lot of airflow through the wheel wells of the car. But while they were at it, they just made the double wishbone front end also create downforce. So just the double wishbone control arms there create 88 pounds of downforce.
Whoa!
Yeah. So it's pretty wild that you know, Porsche, they think of it all. So that's
insane.
That's
so
the coolest.
For you guys out there that might have been a little too over your head, the suspension control arms create downforce. So these aren't just tubular arms. These are arms that are shaped in a way to create downforce inside the wheel well. My car drives like a traditional 911 experience where it's very sensitive on the front end with if you apply throttle too soon or you get off the brakes too soon, you're gonna get that kind of understeery sensation. This car feels like it just does everything not for you, but it's so assertive that like the front end has so much mechanical grip that you could kind of screw up a lot more than you could in my car and it still work out for you. And I always talk about like new cars get big, they get heavy. Porsche did a good job at keeping the weight down, although the size is big. But the 911 does another thing that's really interesting is the cockpit shape and the roof line really help kind of keep the cockpit sort of small. Like inside this car still feels pretty intimate. Like it doesn't feel much bigger than even like a G-body from the 80s.
I mean, this thing's pretty cool. It's kind of based off that turbo body, right? So although the ducts in the back here, they just add for more airflow through the car, which is pretty cool. Big track width, 2 inches, basically 2 inches wider in the front. So that also adds to your responsiveness on turn-in and all that.
Oh my Lord, this is absolutely insane. So we've been driving this car on kind of the factory settings when it comes from default, but Aaron here has a lot of seat time in these cars and he's been dialing in his own little special secret recipe. So
we're gonna play with the PASM a little bit to help the car, you know, steer into the corner a little bit nicer. We're gonna run a little softer front compression. This is it's a pretty quick track, but there's a lot of tight corners.
It's so cool that you could adjust compression and rebound independently and front and rear. This is nuts. Like this is what you would do on an actual race car with like manual damper adjustments.
For sure. Where I actually notice a huge change in the car is playing with the PTV, so the Porsche torque vectoring here.
Torque vectoring means that they're adjusting the differential. Because, you know, in a mechanical differential car, you set it up, but this has an electronic diff, so you're able to actually adjust lockup on deceleration and acceleration. So, what the heck?
It's insane. Like, you'll notice a huge difference here.
Gotta do a first gear hit. Insane.
Every time.
God damn it. Feels a bit softer, which is nice over some of those bumps.
Yeah, so it's kind of a blend between performance and comfort all at the same time.
Exhausting to be in this car because your body's going through so many G-forces in like every direction. God, if you get car sick at all, this thing would definitely make you vomit. Oh my God, I could drive this thing all day. I could drive this until I barf up my lunch for sure and just not care.
Some people do.
Barf up my lunch and just keep going. We're we're gonna go launch this thing. Because that's a must. It's not a drag car, but I mean, come on.
And, yep.
Oh my Lord.
Stay in it. There you go.
The launch is savage. You get a little bit of tire spin, but
Yeah.
it's so incredibly fast. And the carousel turn here, so on camber. Oh my God, so much fun. Jesus. Oh my God, it goes, you can carry so much speed. It's got so much grip. Incredible. Dude. This makes my car feel like a slouch. Dude, this is incredible. You know, at first I was like, I don't need no instructor to come in the car with me. I'm a freaking wheelman. I know how to drive. This is so much car for any racetrack, but especially this one. It's so fast. 520 horsepower, 340 foot-pounds of torque. Not incredibly high horsepower fast car, but just how it does everything in general makes this ridiculous around a track. Could not understand how easy this car was to drive. It's so assertive. It just does everything you want it to do. It's unbelievable. Okay, I'm torn. So that was an incredible experience, and I cannot believe how good the 992 GT3 RS is. I love this car, it's amazing, but I have to say, I think newer is better. And I think the looks of it are a bit polarizing because to me, this car even looks kind of extreme. Like when I first got it, I didn't even like having the red wheels on it because I thought it attracted too much attention. So driving something like the 992 RS on the street feels a little bit crazy. It's sort of in that like hypercar territory. It no longer looks like a casual street 911 or a 911 race car for the street, which was the ethos of the GT3 RS for so long. But I gotta say, that car is so compliant, it's so easy to drive, it makes it feel really practical while having this like insanely capable race car. So if I had to pick, I don't know which one I would want to take. I think I'm a little bit torn because while I love this car, I do find it a bit exhausting to drive in like really crappy conditions like LA traffic. I also love everything about it. And I feel like that might be a little bit of a part of like getting older. I'm 35, so I sort of like the feel of like a real heavy analog driver's car that makes you work for it. Whereas the super high performance, easy to drive, practical, comfortable supercar, hypercar thing is like less appealing to me, but I do find it really fun. Tell me, what do you guys think? What would you rather drive based on what you've seen on the internet, what you like, what you don't like, and what I've said? What would you rather have? Money aside, you're gonna buy either this car, a 991 or a 992 GT3 RS. Which one are you buying and why? Let me know in the comments below. I love engaging with you guys and seeing what you think, so hit me with the comments and we could chat about which car you like and why. I posted a poll on my Instagram stories and more people picked the 997 over the 992, so I was pretty shocked. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Next week, we're back on the Ferrari project. We got a bunch of cool things happening there. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. I'm making videos every Thursday. I appreciate everyone for watching, but for now, I got work to do on this, so I'm out. Dude, this is bone stock.
Bone stock?
This thing is so rough. It's got roof arrow.
I want this. Jeez, feel like you're getting choked out. I'm a baby.
Like the new GT3 RS makes your car look like a Camry.
It's called classic, Jolly. Get some taste.